Hi, I'm Jason. Thanks for listening to The Slippery Slope. Well, if ever Australia was on a slippery slope, it's right now. If you've woken up in this nation, you've obviously seen headlines, I'd say, about Australia, about New South Wales in particular, using the military to enforce lockdowns around the Sydney region. So this headline from Summit News: Australia calls in military to enforce lockdown. I saw the chat on Sunrise this morning with Koshi and talking to the minister, the New South Wales Police Minister, David Elliott. Now, David Elliott has tried to compare the use of the military to when the military stepped in to help Australians during the bushfires. It's not a very good comparison. Bushfires, people's lives were in danger, people were scared, people had no control, people were put out of their homes, the military brought in just to help. This is completely different. This is a lockdown that people, quite frankly, people are getting tired of it. That is why we've had these protests. So at the heart of all this, last weekend, in July, I think it was the 24th of July, they had protests in all around Australia in our capital cities. So I believe in Brisbane, in Sydney, in Melbourne, there were these protests against these lockdowns and other things, mask wearing and all this. Now, I've never been a fan of these protests, and I don't think when you have these protests, if they're not legally done, I do not believe you should be doing them. But in saying all this, it seems like blind flipping Freddy could see that this was going to happen when the government constantly has these long lockdowns with no end in sight. When they started using police as their own, what do you call it? As an extension of them to enforce these lockdown rules, which seem to have just been half the time made up on the spot. They're not something that's gone through a long debate. We're used to laws that have been debated vigorously. Okay, within our cabinets, that's been legislated, that's taken time to go through, and you have public opinion going through for new laws as well. Here we have the health ministers declaring these situations, and then we've got these rules that have been enforced upon people. Now, are they a good idea all the time? I'm not sure. But when you constantly force people to do these things, of course people are going to start protesting. It's an unfortunate byproduct. And then, now we've had this virus in Australia since last year, so I think 18 months now. It's funny because in June of last year, they had the Black Lives Matter protests. They were allowed to go ahead. Throughout the pandemic, we have had climate change protests. They've been allowed to go ahead. Some of the climate change protests that have gone on, that you've seen people marching with no masks on, not practicing this social distancing that magically fixes everything. Yet, when people get up to protest, they are met with extreme force, and now we see the military marching in. And okay, the New South Wales Police Minister, David Elliott, can say nothing to fear, nothing to see here, it's all good. But we're setting a new tone. We're setting something different. This is not the trajectory that Australia needs to continue on. We need to do better. We need to do better by the public. It cannot just be constant lockdowns. They keep reporting the cases. And yet, as I've said constantly, the cases is not equating deaths. The deaths aren't occurring. We had far, far, far more deaths from the flu just several years ago. And now, all of a sudden, we've got apparently no deaths from the flu. This year, we still only had... It's still under 30 deaths from COVID-19 so far. And apparently, 0 deaths from the flu, which is down from over the 1,000 mark, which is what we were normally getting. And yet, for some reason, it's just constant lockdowns because they keep reporting case numbers. It's all about the case numbers. It's all about pushing this agenda of fear. I don't support these protests that are going on, but I got to say, the government needs to wake up and understand why they're going on. You cannot just police with force. You only get to police with the love of the people, to put it that way. It's only when the people are helping to support the police, that's when police are able to do their job. If you're going to have a government and police that don't seem to be working for the people, I've got no idea where we're going to end up heading. It feels like we're heading we're lurching towards a different type of country. This isn't the Australia that I was brought up in. This is not that Australia. We're heading towards becoming a different nation. We are on a slippery slope. In my opinion, I feel like we're on a free fall. Thanks for listening.